Chicago, 1940. The city became something different at night. During the day, it was crowded, loud, and alive. But when night fell, the streets turned into stages, and on that stage, not everyone had a role. Some people simply disappeared. The Chicago Police Department considered these women insignificant. Most of them weren't even officially recorded. Those who were dismissed with brief notes. Possible runaway. Left of her own will, no need for follow-up. But the truth was very different. The names of these women were on Edgar Blackwood's desk. This was his file, not the police's. Evelyn Harper, 32 years old. Once worked as a secretary. After losing her job, she ended up on the streets. Last seen, near a street lamp at the north entrance of Lincoln Park. Witness statement: she was talking to a man. Then they walked away together. Lillian Cross, 26 years old, came from South Chicago. Sold her body to survive. Last seen at a taxi stand. Taxi driver: I didn't see her get in a cab. She walked toward a black car. Margaret Doyle, 34 years old, had a drinking problem. Last seen on one of the benches in the park. The next morning, only her bag was found. The last woman, Rose Bennett, 29 years old, blonde, quiet, new to the city. She still had hope. That was what made her different. That night, it was cold. The wind howled through the trees of Lincoln Park. Rose pulled her thin coat tighter. Her shoes echoed against the stone pavement. She stopped at a corner. She waited. Because the hardest part of this life was waiting. A car slowly approached. Its headlights lit up her face. Rose had to squint. The window rolled down. There was a man inside. His face remained in the shadows.
Cold?
The man asked. His voice was calm. Too calm. Rose hesitated. But then, she stepped forward, because in Chicago, on some nights, you don't have a choice.
How much?
The man asked. For a moment, the wind stopped. The city seemed to hold its breath. Rose stepped closer to the car. The door opened, and in that moment, something changed. The expression on Rose's face froze, as if she had realized something. But it was too late. The man's hand shot out, fast, precise. A movement he had done before. Rose couldn't scream, because she never had the chance. The door slammed shut. The car moved. And Chicago swallowed another woman. By morning, everything looked normal. People walked through the park. Children played. Journalists drank coffee. But something was missing. A street vendor tried to explain what he saw that night.
There was a car, black, an old model. The man looked strange.
The police shrugged.
Same story again.
They didn't even open a file, but someone was listening. Edgar Blackwood stood by his window, a newspaper in his hand. The headline was small, tucked into a corner. Young woman missing. But to Edgar, this wasn't just news. It was a continuation of a pattern. He walked to his desk, opened the file, added a new page, Rose Bennett. He wrote a single sentence beneath it.
This will not be the last.
He paused. His pen hovered in the air. Then he added a second line.
Because this is only the beginning.
Edgar put on his coat, took his hat, and headed for the door. Chicago now had another hunter. Some disappearances are not coincidences. Some are stories written patiently by someone. Night. Lincoln Park had been swallowed by darkness. The shadows of the trees stretched long, and the paths were covered in deep black. The wind dragged dry leaves across the stone, leaving behind a faint rustling sound. This part of Chicago felt calm during the day, but Edgar Blackwood never trusted daylight. Truths revealed themselves at night. Edgar stepped through the north entrance of the park. The sound of his shoes was too loud. He stopped. He listened. There was no sound, but that was not comforting. Because Edgar knew this.
Real danger stays silent.
He slipped his hand into his pocket, pulled out his notebook, slowly flipped through the pages, names, dates, last known locations. They all converged toward the same point. The same area, the same darkness. Edgar lifted his head, looked around. And in that moment, he noticed the first mistake. Inside the park, there was an old bench. This was the last place Margaret Doyle had been seen. Edgar approached it slowly, ran his hand across the surface. The wood felt cold. But there was something there, something very small. Something that required careful attention. Scratches. They weren't random. They were parallel, thin, sharp. Edgar whispered,
Knife.
but this didn't look like an attack mark. This had been done while waiting. Edgar closed his eyes, reconstructed the scene in his mind. A man sitting on that bench, silent, motionless, holding something in his hand, a knife, while waiting. With impatience, he carved into the wood. But this wasn't ordinary impatience. This was a need for control. Edgar opened his eyes.
You're not in a hurry. You're choosing.
He began walking toward the park exit. At the corner, there was a small stand. An old man, selling cigarettes and newspapers. Edgar approached him, bought a cigarette, but didn't light it.
I saw you here last night.
I'm here every night.
There was a woman last night.
The man fell silent. Edgar pulled a few bills from his pocket, placed them on the table. The man looked at the money, then at Edgar.
Yes, there was.
Was she alone?
At first, yes.
What happened next?
A car came.
What kind of car?
Black, old model, killed it.
Who was inside?
The man's expression changed, as if he didn't want to remember.
He didn't get out.
What do you mean he didn't get out?
The woman walked to it herself.
Silence. This was important. Very important.
Was she afraid?
No, that's what was strange.
What do you mean?
The woman, as she approached the car, paused for a moment.
And then?
Then her face changed.
How did it change?
Like she realized she was too late.
Edgar stepped back, lost in thought. This wasn't a forced abduction. This was a trap. The women didn't seem afraid at first, because they realized the danger too late. And at that point, there was no escape. As Edgar approached the exit of the park, he felt something. He was being watched. He stopped, slowly turned around. No one was there, but the feeling was unmistakable. Because Edgar was a hunter too, and hunters recognized other hunters. Edgar opened his notebook, wrote on the last page.
Close, very close. But patient.
He paused, then added,
He might be watching me too.
He closed the notebook and stepped out of the darkness of Lincoln Park. But tonight, he was not alone. Some traces are invisible. They are only felt. Some streets in Chicago felt dark even during the day. Just a few steps away from Lincoln Park, in a narrow and damp alley, there stood a small shop. Its sign was faded, but the writing was still visible. Patrick's Meat and Cuts. Edgar stood across the shop. Rain was falling lightly. He looked through the window. Everything was excessively orderly. The meat hung symmetrically. The knives were arranged with precision. The counter spotless. This was not normal for a butcher shop. Edgar murmured.
This isn't a business. It's a ritual.
He pushed the door open. A bell rang. A heavy scent of meat filled the air, but it wasn't unpleasant. It was clean. Too clean. Behind the counter stood a man, broad-shouldered, silent, motionless, Patrick. He held a knife, and with it, he was cutting meat without any haste. As Edgar approached, the man spoke.
What are you looking for?
He didn't lift his gaze. Edgar didn't answer. He observed first. The knife wasn't tearing the meat apart. It was separating it in a single motion. Flawlessly.
Fine craftsmanship.
Patrick showed a faint smile, but his eyes remained down.
Habit.
Edgar focused on Patrick's hands, cuts, thin marks. Some were old, some were fresh, but all of them were in the same areas, inside the fingers. This wasn't random. Edgar asked.
You butcher often.
This time, Patrick looked up. Their eyes met. The first real contact.
Part of the job.
A lie. Edgar felt it, because those marks weren't from carelessness. They were from habit. Edgar stepped closer to the counter. He lightly touched the wooden surface. It appeared smooth, but some areas were more worn. The same spot had been cut repeatedly. Edgar whispered.
You always start from the same point.
Patrick froze for a very brief moment, but Edgar didn't miss it.
I like order.
No. You like control.
Silence. Something shifted in the air. Edgar turned his eyes to the knives. Each one was a different size, but arranged in the same pattern.
How do you decide which one to use?
Patrick stayed silent. Edgar continued.
Thickness, durability, or depending on what you're cutting.
Patrick paused. He placed the knife on the counter, slowly. He stepped closer to Edgar.
What are you implying?
A butcher cuts meat. A surgeon saves lives. And you?
A long silence. Then Patrick smiled. But it wasn't sincere.
I just do my job.
At that moment, a woman entered the shop. She looked tired. Cold. Edgar noticed immediately. She resembled the others. Patrick noticed too, but he quickly looked away, too quickly. This wasn't a reflex, it was an instinct to hide. At that moment, Edgar understood. This man wasn't just seeing women. He was choosing them. After the woman left the shop, Edgar walked toward the door. He paused. Without turning back, he spoke.
There's a bench in the park, wood covered in wounds. Knife marks. Looks like your work.
Patrick didn't respond, but his eyes, for the first time, revealed something real. Edgar stepped into the rain. The door closed behind him. He took out his notebook, wrote a new title.
The butcher cuts, waits, chooses. And he hasn't made a mistake. Yet.
Some individuals don't choose their profession. Their profession reveals who they truly are. Night felt heavier this time. The rain was still falling. The city was soaked, glistening, and quiet. And there are some nights when a person cannot silence the voice inside. Edgar Blackwood turned his collar up. He stood across the street, his eyes fixed on a single point. Patrick's shop. Time, 1:43. The lights were still on. That was not normal. Edgar took a deep breath and waited. Because some prey does not forgive those who rush. 2:12. The lights went out. The door opened. Patrick stepped outside. He carried nothing, but that didn't mean he wasn't carrying something. He closed the door, paused. Without lifting his head, he listened to his surroundings. Edgar froze. Didn't move, because at that moment, even a wrong breath, could end everything. Patrick got into his car. The engine started. The headlights turned on, and the hunt began. After a few seconds, Edgar moved. He followed from a distance, kept his lights dim, maintained the gap. Patrick wasn't driving straight. Right turn, then left. Then, another right for no reason. This wasn't a route. This was a test. Edgar murmured, "You're testing me." But he didn't back off. Patrick slowed down, stopped at a street corner. Someone was there. A woman, thin dress, shaking hands, tired eyes. Edgar's heartbeat slowed. Now, he thought. Patrick rolled down the window. The woman stepped closer. A short conversation. Very short. Then, the door opened. She got in. Edgar clenched his teeth.
No.
But it was too late. Edgar accelerated, closed the distance. And in that moment, he made his first mistake. He got too close. Patrick looked into the rearview mirror. 1 second. 2 seconds. It was enough. Patrick suddenly sped up, took a sharp turn. Edgar followed. The streets narrowed, lights faded. Patrick turned off his headlights. Darkness swallowed everything. Edgar didn't stop. But this was no longer a pursuit. This was a disappearance. For a moment, Edgar saw the car, in a back alley. Just for a second, the silhouette of the woman appeared in the window. And then, it vanished. Edgar hit the brakes. The car skidded to a stop. He looked around. Nothing. Only rain. Only darkness. And a feeling of emptiness. Edgar leaned onto the steering wheel, closed his eyes. He was too late. He whispered,
I lost her.
But this wasn't just a loss. This was a message. Edgar raised his head, looked into the rearview mirror. No one was there, but the feeling remained. Patrick had done this on purpose. He had noticed him, tested him, and defeated him. Edgar took out his notebook for the first time. His hand trembled slightly. He wrote,
He knows he's being followed, and he enjoys it.
He closed the notebook. His eyes darkened. This was no longer a question. This was a war. When you start watching a hunter, at some point you forget who is observing whom. The woman's name had not been spoken yet. Patrick never asked. The inside of the car was warm, but this warmth did not comfort. It was suffocating. The woman turned toward the window. Rain slid down the glass. The city had become a blurred image.
How long are we going to drive?
Patrick didn't respond. The woman reacted with a faint smile. She was used to it. Some men didn't talk much, but this was different because this man felt like he didn't exist. A sudden sense of unease rose inside her. There was no reason. Then she noticed something. Patrick's hands, resting on the steering wheel, motionless, but gripping tightly. On the inside of his fingers, there were marks, delicate, sharp. The woman slowly leaned back. Her instincts were screaming.
You're running out of time.
The car stopped. Darkness surrounded them. No lights. The woman frowned.
Where is this?
Patrick turned off the engine. Only silence remained. Then, he slowly turned toward her for the first time. His face was fully visible, and in that moment, the woman understood the truth. This was not a client. The door was locked. The woman pulled back.
Hey,
She couldn't finish, because Patrick's eyes were not human. There was emptiness, but inside that emptiness, there was something. Hatred. The woman was led forward, not by force. Because she understood resistance was meaningless, a door opened. Stairs going down, damp, cold. and below. A single light was on. The room was small. The walls were bare. A single chair stood in the center. The woman hesitated.
Please.
Patrick didn't respond. He only pointed at the chair. She sat because she had no choice. Patrick slowly circled her, not like a butcher, like a collector. He examined her hair, her hands, her face. He was evaluating. Then he spoke.
Some just disappear.
Tears began to fall from the woman's eyes. Patrick continued.
But some, I remembered.
Patrick picked up a knife from the table. It gleamed under the light. The woman closed her eyes. But Patrick didn't act immediately. He waited. This was his ritual. Waiting. At the same time, in another part of the city, Edgar Blackwood sat. A blank map lay before him, and only one point was marked, the last place she was seen. But Edgar's mind was somewhere else.
Where did you take her?
He closed his eyes, started thinking. The park, back alleys, dark areas. Then something clicked. Edgar opened his eyes.
Close. Not far.
Because men like this didn't take their victims far. They took them somewhere they could control. Edgar stood up, put on his coat. This time, he wouldn't follow. He would find. At that moment, in the basement, Patrick was raising the knife. The woman held her breath. And then, from far away, very far away, a sound echoed. A police siren. Patrick froze, lifted his head, and for the first time, he felt discomfort. Some victims understand before they live, and some hunters, for the first time, feel uneasy in that moment. Chicago was still asleep, but Edgar Blackwood was no longer waiting. He decided to move faster. His mind was crystal clear.
Keep them close. It has to be a place he can control.
And then, his eyes locked onto that street, narrow, silent, forgotten, and most importantly, familiar. The alley behind Patrick's shop. Edgar drew his gun, but didn't raise it yet. Not now. He moved toward the back door. It wasn't locked. This wasn't a mistake. This was haste. Edgar slowly pushed the door open. Inside was dark, but from below, a faint light leaked through. The stairs creaked. Each step felt too loud. But Edgar didn't hesitate, because now he knew. The possibility of being late was the greatest enemy. Edgar turned the corner and saw her, the woman sitting on the chair, her head lowered, but alive, and behind her stood Patrick, a knife in his hand. The light split his face in two, half human, half nothing.
It's over.
Edgar's voice filled the room. Patrick froze, slowly turned around. Their eyes met. There was no escape. Patrick replied with a faint smile.
I expected you.
Edgar didn't move closer.
No, I didn't expect you to wait.
Silence filled the space. Patrick lowered his head.
People. No one looks for them.
I do.
Patrick's expression changed. For the first time, control was slipping.
You are different.
No. I just fill the gaps you leave behind.
Patrick suddenly moved, raised the knife, but this was not planned. This was panic, and this was the first mistake. The gun fired. The echo filled the basement. Patrick stopped. The knife fell from his hand. Slowly, he dropped to his knees. His eyes never left Edgar, a look of disbelief. Because for the first time, he had lost. The woman began to sob. Edgar didn't lower his gun. He stepped closer. Patrick collapsed to the ground, but still looked at him and said one last thing.
I just chose.
Edgar leaned in and whispered.
You chose the wrong one.
This time, the siren was close, very close. Edgar untied the woman. She was trembling, but alive. That was enough. Edgar walked up the stairs. Dawn was slowly breaking. Chicago was turning gray. As the police rushed inside, Edgar didn't stop. He kept walking, because his work never truly ended. Lincoln Park, the same bench, the same marks. Edgar placed his hand on the wooden surface, closed his eyes, then took out his notebook. On the last page he wrote,
It's over, but the city is never clean.
He closed the notebook, stood up, and walked into the depths of darkness. Some stories don't end with the killer's death, because darkness always finds a new identity.